LINA, which is a transition initiative in Dublin 12. It's an environmental group who look imaginatively at life beyond oil, because we're going to run out of oil soon. And one of the things that they're looking at is local currencies and things like that. What I'd like an answer from all of you is two things. I think that any change is going to happen, where my 2, 3 and 4 votes are going to go, is for parties who are going to show me A, imaginative ideology about hope for the future, and B, specific things. I want to know what you're going to do about the likes of the people who falsify their accounts in the Anglo-Irish Bank. Are they actually going to go to prison?
I think just in terms of people going to jail, in terms of falsifying accounts, to my limited knowledge, the 1963 Companies Act does contain a criminal offence, the falsification of accounts. And I would certainly be urging that that simple measure be pursued to lock people. At least it would put somebody behind. They're overcomplicating things. They're trying to pursue things through 2008 legislation and taking years. The 1963 Act, I think, will do it. In terms of hope for the future, it is about the future. If we do nothing, young people will be left with no choice but to emigrate. That's the start. We're at a bit of a precipice, and we have to work our way back, and we have to realise that there are real choices to be made, and it's in our own interests and those of our children and grandchildren that we make them as quickly as possible. And that is how we will generate hope, is if we get people back to work, if we start investing on a targeted basis, and if we start taking decisions. The level of non-decisions in the last 2 years has been criminal, and that needs to change.
Well, of course, the whole political culture of the nation has to change fundamentally. I mentioned the fact there was a backbencher, a canon voting fodder for government and backbencher in opposition. There's, in my estimation, far too many TDs, and we've got to drastically reduce the numbers. It's farcical to see so many TDs going around dealing with, in competition even with their own local councillors on council issues, which indicates just a surplus of TDs not being channelled, and their energy has been channelled in a productive way on behalf of the state. Criminals who bankrupt this country, be they political or be they bankers, must be held responsible. The problem in this country seems to be you have tribunals and they go on forever, and we're still waiting for the Bertie Ahern Tribunal to make its findings. When I talk about a political culture, when Jack Lynch, to my mind, was a decent, honest Irishman, was replaced by the hotties of this world, and subsequently by a stream of ministers from Ray Burke right across the board to PJ Flynn. They should have been in jail. We should have transformed Irish society at that point in time, but we live in a democracy, and the Irish electorate felt that they were capable of being forgiven, and they kept him in government for the last 14 years. As a realist, I've got to respect the decisions of the electorate.
I think that things have to be innovative, and I believe that it's not the elite that have the answers, politically or anything else. It's people have the answers. And I think that the democracy we've lived in the last period of time, and even internationally, is not real democracy. It's democracy that you can elect somebody and then you have only another 5 years unless that government decides to stand down, or they're taken down by a huge upheaval of people power. I believe there has to be more accountability, absolutely. I don't know how that can be done, but I think that that should be decided by forums and referendums that have to be put to the people to tease these things out, because I don't have all the answers, and I'm still talking to people all the time about how that can be done. For example, if someone gets elected with 4,000 votes, or even the council gets elected with 2,000 votes, on the basis of that, can that person be removed by 2,000 people signing the petition to remove that person from their position if they're not delivering what they've committed to the people that go to look to be elected every time? I think the key to this is jobs. It's absolutely crucial. You're talking about 55 billion euro have already gone into a black hole in the banks. We're never going to see that money again. It's gone. It's disappeared. If the ERSI say that for every 1 billion invested in jobs, 8,000 to 10,000 jobs can be created. So if that 55 billion was put into creating jobs, we wouldn't have the 450,000 people unemployed on the dole at the moment. And I don't believe that it can be done through private companies at this point in time. They don't have the money, they don't have the resources, and to do that, and it has to be state-led. And the state have a key role to play in this. And the foundation of our state, the ESB was set up because people needed electricity. People need now their homes insulated. We need to get our infrastructure in place. We need to build our schools. We need to repair the schools. One of the questions here, the schools in the area. There are umpteen things that can be done, and yet we're seeing both Fine Gael talking about cutting 30,000 public sector jobs. People can't get their maintenance done in their flats because there's no maintenance workers there to do it. So it's just absolutely crazy. We have to just rethink things at the moment. We're in a crisis. We have to try and deal with it, get people back to work, paying their taxes, spending money, and that's the start of it in relation to that, and then looking to making the people pay who haven't paid a cent at all to this economy.
There was two elements to the question. Obviously, anyone who's broken the law, anyone who's falsified accounts, should be prosecuted and dealt with by the authorities. To the best of my knowledge, in relation to one particular individual, there was a very large team of detectives and lawyers working on a prosecution case, and as I understand it, no expense is being spared by the state to bring that prosecution to a successful conclusion. So please, let's be clear about this, that the state never, to my knowledge, turns a blind eye to wrongdoing by anyone. I should state, of course, that there's also an obligation on politicians to lead by example and not to encourage people, for example, to break the law, even if they don't agree with that law. And, respect has to come every way. One thing I disagree with Joan. Joan says we don't live in a real democracy. I'm sorry, we live in a very real democracy. Every 5 years you elect a local authority of your choice. Every 4 or 5 years, this time it's 3.5 years, you elect a Dáil Éireann of your choice. We live in a very good democracy, in my opinion, which the framework of which is our Irish constitution, which I happen to believe has served our country reasonably well. I fully accept, however, that we live in a more complex world and we do need political reform. I agree with Eric that you can't have a legislature where all the TDs are running around, fixing small constituency problems. We now need, I would agree, a smaller Dáil with TDs who are perhaps experts in certain areas and are monitoring expenditure very closely and looking at legislation, looking at national issues a lot more closely. That focus has to change, in my view.